welcome back to the Calm and Connected podcast. I'm your host, Janine Halloran, and on today's podcast, you'll get a chance to hear me interview Karen Lock Kolp. Karen is an executive leadership and play coach. Her podcast is called We Turned Out Okay, and her forthcoming book is called We Turned Out Okay, Playbook of Days. Her mission in life is to restore play to its extremely important place in the pantheon of human ingenuity. She believes in magic, and she believes in the power of play to solve any problem, even the really big ones. So Karen and I obviously talked a little bit about play, which is one of my passions, as you know, but we also talked about the power of intuition and role modeling as parents. So take a listen to our conversation here. Karen Lock Kolp, I'm so excited to have you on my show. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Janine. I am thrilled to be here. I'm so excited that you're doing this. This is amazing. The world needs this from you.
Thank you. Oh my gosh. So my listeners don't necessarily know this, but you and I have been friends for some time. I actually call Karen my internet bestie because several years ago, oh my gosh, when did we actually first, was that 4 years ago, 5 years ago now?
I think it might even be 6 years ago because I have been podcasting for 6 years. My podcast is 6 years old. And you were among the first guests because I read an article of yours about play in a little local newspaper.
Yes, that's right. This is like parents' paper, and I was all focused on encourage play at that point, and really passionate about play, and still am. I love talking about play, and I'm so glad that you're here because when I think about play, I think about our conversations, and I think about conversations we've had about play, and just enjoying our time together, and I think of that as playtime. So I know you, but I'd love for you to share a little bit more about yourself and how you got to where you are today.
Oh, wow. Oh, thank you. What a fun way to think of it. Like, how did I get here? So where I am, I'm at a really fun place where I basically have become obsessed with play, is really how I think of it. I'm so curious about how adults get play into their lives. And I know from my years in education, I know from my years as a podcaster and as a parent myself, if we aren't playing in some way, there is trouble for everybody. It's like and us most of all. And so I really I I like to say I believe in magic, and I believe that play can solve pretty well any problem that comes up, even the very biggest ones. And what I've been doing recently is I've taken my I've closed I used to have a community online for parents. It was for 4.5 years. I ran this community called the Ninja Parenting Community. And what I discovered was that it wasn't working for me. I was sort of taking too much responsibility and not letting not letting myself relax. And like it became really important to a lot of people during the pandemic. And I gave and gave and gave and never rested. And you described this once about putting yourself last on the list. And I was like, yes, that's exactly what I did. And I think it's all part of how I got here, right? So so I've gone from being a parent coach and running a group parent coaching community to being I think of myself now. I mean, coaching is only one of my titles, right? Coaching is often a tool for me, but I'm a consultant. I'm a trusted advisor. I'm an executive coach. I'm a leadership coach, and I'm a play coach. And so 6 years ago, I started We Turned Out Okay, which is the name of my show. And I started it because 4 years before that, I developed a tendon disorder. It's a chronic illness in the sense of I'm prone to it. It's not like an autoimmune issue or something, but I am always prone to scar tissue in my tendons. And for a while I couldn't walk for over a period of 2 years, a little more than 2 years. I lost the ability to walk and then regained it over 18 months. That took a long time.
Wow.
And then I lost the ability to use my thumbs, which made all the forearms and hands go offline. And I still have pretty limited use of my arms. But without the tendon disorder, I believe there would be no podcast, because I had a friend who said to me, "Okay, all the regular things are off the table for you. You're not driving people around, you're not doing laundry, you're not cooking, you're not chopping vegetables, you're not cleaning. But what does this open up? What possibilities does this open up? What does it make possible?" And what I'm doing now is a direct result of that question. So there's a long answer for you, my friend.
I love it though, because it is, we make it, you know what I mean? We make our lives what, you know, when we are dealing with something, then we work through it and we learn from it and we can grow from it. And that's what you did. You figured out what was going to work for you, because what had worked before was no longer working.
Yeah. Can I share a little bit more? Because I
Yeah.
think that's so interesting. So if I'm to go back, the reason I got the tendon disorder is because I got a dreadful condition called diverticulitis. I got the diverticulitis because I was putting myself last on the list. I felt I took on all the responsibility, and I was having some fun, but that's because part of my responsibilities were fun. And so I've been thinking about this a lot recently. I'm working with a client who loves the idea of leaving the corporate world, where he is an executive, and buying a dump truck so that he can drive around rock and stone and deliver it to landscapers and construction sites, hit totally on his own time. His biggest fear is that one of his biggest fears is that he will somehow end up at the head of a massive organization of dump trucks, and he won't be doing what he wants to do. And so very recently, I was invited to be a part of a group of coaches supporting each other. And I had to really think on that, because my initial take was like, no way, because I'm so afraid of taking on all the responsibility. And so I finally said to myself, this sounds like fun. You can do it, but only if you can do it in a relaxed, you're not the leader here kind of way.
Yeah, it's really tricky. You sort of like, that part of you can take over very easily. Like suddenly a hobby turns into a part-time business. And you're like,
Yeah.
then the hobby is no longer a hobby, then you have to do it. And then it loses its spark. It loses its fun.
Yeah.
It can. Oh my gosh. So cool. So what made you so interested in play in the first place? What do you love about play? Tell me about play and how that works into your life.
E Ever since I was a preschool teacher. So, if we're to go back, this has been my career for 30 years now. In some way or other, I've been educating kids, parents, or myself, or sometimes all three at the same time. And I started as a preschool teacher. I started working in the Yukon Child Labs in the 90s, the early 90s, because I don't even know if universities still do this, but there used to be this place where you could go and like employees, professors, custodians, cooks, people who worked at the university, their kids could be enrolled in the child lab. And it was basically a daycare where people like me would go and work with them and learn how to be teachers. And we used to have a weekly meeting. And one of the things that came up like every week in this weekly staff meeting was play is the most important things that children do and need. Like play is how they resolve conflicts. Play is how they feel better about challenges and problems that come up in their lives. Play is how they have fun. Play brings humor and joy and connection and all these really, really important things. And it was so, I saw that I saw the results of that. And over the years, I think it's become more and more like there's never a time when it hasn't been interesting to me, because it keeps changing aspects. And right now, I think what I'm playing with is the push and pull between responsibility and control and play.
Ooh, I'd love for you to say more about that. That sounds really interesting.
I'm finding that um, very often high achieving adults, of which I'm certainly one. I'm sure that you are too, Janine. I've seen this, in your life going as we've known each other. High achieving people very often do not rest, and rest and play are very, very intertwined. So if we can't sort of let go of our control over every situation and just have fun with it, um, we are not we're bearing too much responsibility. And I include myself in this. Like they say you coach on the things that you most need to learn, right? This is so true. Um, and if we don't get some play in our lives, if we don't have a balance for that responsibility, if we don't let someone else take the reins every once in a while, we can't relax. We don't sleep as well. We don't take care of ourselves in the way that like our bodies really need if we're going to live a vibrant and happy life. And it strains our relationships if we don't, if we take too much responsibility, it also, and maybe this is really the lesson for me in these days, in this moment that we're recording, because I've got today is my 17-year-old's birthday, my baby's birthday.
Oh, happy
And
birthday.
and um and I know with teenagers, he's my second one, who's the other one is now in his 20s, but if you if you try to take the responsibility on for a teenager, it doesn't go well because that's what they're biologically geared for. Like their whole job is to be leaving, and figuring out how to do that is i- if we take on too much of the responsibility, we're going to be fighting with them. And so playfulness has really come into it, and again, a letting go of control. And instead of saying, "Oh, I'm worried about you," I keep hearing your alarm. Are you getting up okay? So instead of that, to be able to say, like, because that will communicate, I'm not sure that you can do this, right?
Right.
At least with some, this is in my experience. Others may have different experiences, but if I can instead say, like, wow, that seemed like it was hard for you this morning. Sometimes it's really hard for me too. I'm communicating, you've got this, and I know you'll figure it out. And it is like play is serious business, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I would completely agree. Play is serious business. I find it interesting where you talk about like being able to take a break and learning to take those breaks, especially I think this past year has really taught me how important breaks are and how important it is to take them and how easy it is for them to fall to the wayside because, I'm working from home. I always work from home, but for the most part, but working from home and having everybody around at the same time and having like a bigger load of responsibility and when it came to helping to manage and monitor school a little bit more than I necessarily would have liked or needed to do when they are just in school and the teachers are able to talk to them and figure things out with them. Um, I found that work was really bleeding even into my weekends, and I finally it's like this is really not okay. What happened to my breaks, man? I've got to make sure, like, if I'm talking about self-care, if I'm talking about making sure that I'm using my own coping strategies, gosh, better be on it and do it, right?
Yeah.
So I started really making sure that I actually took breaks on the weekends. No more scheduling people on the weekends. No more, oh, I'll just get up and do these like two quick things if I ran out of time during the week. No, it'll wait till Monday. Like nobody is like, it's not a big, huge crisis. I can wait till Monday and I can read a book or watch a TV show or read a magazine or go on a walk or make something fun to eat. Like it really is valuable. And I find that I am a much happier person when I take the break, when I give
Yeah.
myself the actual weekend to do whatever the heck I want. And then I hit the ground running on Monday.
Yep. Yep. And I for me, having to walk that talk, because now I'm telling other people, right? I'm tomorrow, for example, I have plans to be in the park from probably, I don't know, noon to like 3, right?
Yep.
But my website is broken. Tomorrow it looks like is the day that, and it has been broken for like 2 weeks. But we're living, it's okay, right?
We're fine. We're fine. We're walking through it.
Yeah, we're walking through it. Exactly. It's riding the waves. And tomorrow looks like the day that the wonderful person that you recommended actually is going to be able to look at it. And I'm like, okay, how do I be in the park but also be available for her? Because this can't happen at any other time. And last week I didn't get my time in the park. I committed to it the week before and I didn't get it the very first week I was going to do it. I'm like, I can't miss this tomorrow. Somehow or other, I'm going to be in the park tomorrow, because if I'm not walking my talk. And so and part of it, I think, is, again, it's this idea of letting go. Like, if she calls or if she needs me to authenticate something or whatever, well, there's Wi-Fi in the park. It'll be okay. Like, but I want to be sure that I don't, this is an emergency, I feel like, because I've got her in this moment and no other moment. But that doesn't necessarily have to derail everything. And there's something that I have been working on that's due Monday, right? And I'm maybe a quarter of the way in, but I'm like, just as you say, I decided today, if I have time tomorrow, fine, before I go to the park. If
Yeah.
not, it will be Monday that I look at it, and that's going to be okay. It's not
Yeah.
a fire that needs to be put out, right?
Right. And I feel like so many times we can, we see an inbox, we get requests from people. People are asking for us for things. We have all the responsibilities. And so it's like hard to triage sometimes, to feel like everything is not a level 5 emergency. Like, we are not all there. Like, it's not it. Even if somebody's kind of unhappy, it's still not a level 5. Like, do we need to go to the hospital? No? Great. Then let's figure something else out and take a breath. Let's stop and like think through it in a different way. And it gives you the space to breathe, and it gives you the space to like actually respond better in ways if you can like slow it down and pause. That's great.
Something I've been working on this week, it actually came up in I do have a group coaching, like a little coaching group called the 2021 Year of Empowerment Program. And in there, it came up last week for one of the members that their energy was like, they were trying to decide what drains me, what energizes me. And I was like, oh, I know what we can do. Let's do an energy audit. So what we're doing, and we're going to check in every week from today through like the middle or end of August, in the group, is I have written, and they have written as well, a list of things that, energizes me, right? And then things that drain me of energy. And all I'm doing each week is looking at that list and determining, did I get more of the things that energize me, and am I able to eliminate any of the things that drain me? And just having the list and just knowing that I was going to think about this for like 3 minutes on a Thursday has made the whole week so much better, because there's always going to be fires. There's always going to be, drains on your time, whether it's like, a lot of things for us have been sort of bureaucratic insurance kind of, kind of things, and doctor's appointments and all, switching practitioners and all this kind of stuff. And like, to be able to be positive and see the things to be grateful for, those two things, positivity and gratitude, are on the energizing side. But if I was coming from the complaining, cynicism kind of stuff, that's so draining. And I found that, like, even in the same situation, if I could switch it from what drains me of energy to what energizes me, everything went better. And like, the whole week has gone better because of this. So
That's a great exercise. I love that. And just the idea of sitting down and to actually think through what is draining and what is energizing. I think for people to like pay attention to what's going on in your body, like what is happening for you. in knowing in the moment, is this something that is am I feeling energized? Am I feeling drained? What just happened? What are the certain things that are, that I'm noticing are the things that are draining? What are the things that I'm finding energizing? It was actually my daughter who really helped me with this over COVID, because at one point she's like, Mommy, I think you're working too hard. I think you need to take a break. And I was like, oh, I'm fine. And then I actually stopped, because, sometimes your kids help you like stop and think and really reflect for you. And I was like, I don't feel great right now. I feel a little tired. My brain is full, but I'm trying to do this thing. And I know, and then I thought, well, if I just stop, like she recommended as my brilliant 13-year-old, I would feel better and be able to manage it better at a different time when I have more energy. And I was like, this is incredible. Kids teach you so much. You can model for them, right? But then they can be also amazing teachers as well.
So, if I can just share a little bit, this is really interesting. Earlier this week, I was really living on the energy draining side. And so there is a part of this that's like, one of the things I put on my draining list was the words, "Your call is important to us." And like, I can't, and then I'd have to call somebody else's customer service and I'd hear it again and I'd be like, ugh. And so I had this sort of feeling of like, I have to live in this energy because, right. And I was in the car with my son, with my today 17-year-old, and I was complaining about something, which is again, not something that I do. This is on the drains list. And I know this. He said to me, Mom, I think you need a vacation.
Oh.
And I was like, why do you think that? And he said, he did it just the way you're saying, right? With your daughter. He said to me, well, every day for the last several days, you have told me about something that you don't have any control over, but that you hate, or that, there's something really upsetting to you that you also don't have any control over. And I was like, whoa, like,
Wow.
he's right. Like, he held up such a mirror to me. And I hadn't even known that I was complaining in a way, how we can kind of get caught up in that. And between that and this little energy audit, it's been so interesting, because now what I do when I hear the words, your call is important to us, what I do is I immediately think, what am I grateful for? What
Yep.
is about this situation that's good, right? And there's a comedian who used to say, when he's talking about people complaining about being on airplanes, and he would say, you're sitting in a chair in the sky. Think of the miracle of this.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah. No, that's something, it's so interesting. And before we started recording and just in prep for this, you and I talked about potentially talking about like role modeling and being a good role model for a good and happy life. But it sounds like there's this piece of like being able to hear that reflection and being able to move on that and show you can hear feedback and you can take it into account, and then you can use that and make better choices.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there's something to be said too for being, and we both did this very well. And I hope our listeners will also do this. It can be so easy to jump to a defensive, what do you mean I need a vacation? No, I don't. I just had one. What are you talking about? And there was a part of me that was like, he's wrong. He's so wrong. And then I just stopped for a minute and I was like, actually, is he wrong? Like, why is he saying this in this caring voice?
He's trying so hard, right? He's like, he's being a good, like he's listening to you. He's here. He's paying attention to you. He's really paying attention, but he's like, there is something wrong, Mom.
Yep. As with your 13-year-old, like if we can only stop and listen, and sometimes I know how hard that is, boy, can we learn a lot from them.
Yeah. I mean, it's incredible to see that sort of reflected, as you're trying to raise them in the proper way, and then they do something where they're like, the things that you've been trying to teach me, like you might just need a little bit of a refresher. So here you go. Just a little dose of reality for you, Mom. Just a little gut check for you. I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
You know, you have mentioned about the power of intuition. I'd love for you to speak on that a little bit.
Oh, wow. Yes. When we were getting ready for this conversation and I saw the word intuition come up, I was like, yes. And in fact, just in our conversation, I noticed you when you were speaking about your daughter and what she was telling you, and you basically saying, she's right, and I need to do something about this, right? You had your hand right over your heart. And I think about that a lot because I've learned that intuition doesn't live in our brain. Intuition is about our body, right? It's about what our heart desires, what our gut tells us. Like we have all these expressions, you know what I mean? Butterflies in my stomach and um oh, I'm sure we can think of a million of them. Like oftentimes for me the heart ones come up because my heart will sing if something is beautiful to me or thrilling or just, I see the expression on my child's face and I'm like, oh my God, he's so happy. My heart is singing. And it's really tricky because intuition, we can miss it. If we're sort of treating ourselves as like a body whose only job is to carry around the brain, we're missing, oh, like, I don't know, how much more of us is there of body than brain, right? Like we're missing like 95% of what's going on around us, of how we feel, of our emotions. And so I've really learned that intuition is about being in touch with our emotions. And just one very simple exercise that I often drop into that I learned from a coach I know named Rich Litvin, um, that has helped me so much is if we take our hand and place it over our heart and we close our eyes and we try to be someplace where we're, you know, alone, where we're not going to be maybe interrupted or walked in on. And it doesn't take long, but if we just, and Janine, I love that you're doing this too. Just taking a deep breath, bringing it down into our lungs and asking, what does my heart need me to know right now? And just listening for the answer. And so the first time I did this, what my heart needed me to know was, it said to me, I am strong. And then the next question is, what else does your heart need you to know right now? And so when I tuned in for that, the answer was, and you don't need to worry about me. And the idea that, because for me, I do spend a lot, especially the world is opening back up a little bit where I live. And so there's some social anxiety and I can feel very worried for myself that like I will say something that will hurt somebody or someone will hurt me, you know what I mean? And so my heart saying to me, I'm strong and you don't need to worry about me is basically saying like, we're okay. You're a lot stronger than you think, Karen.
Yeah.
And then the last part of that exercise, and I do want to remember to say it, is to take a moment and pause and thank your heart and just say thank you to your heart. And that is the intuition of my heart tells me that I'm strong, right? I don't know, Janine, if I can put you on the spot, did your heart have anything to say?
You know, my heart was talking, and for me, it's like heart and gut combined.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I always, ever since, even in graduate school, when I was working with kids, I would get this like gut feeling about something I could say or something I should explore or something that they need to hear or, and I still get that and it's really fun because I can then like a lot of times when I go with my gut, when I go with where my heart is telling me to go, it works out for me and it helps the child, it helps the client. And it's interesting because I've been talking, actually, I had a few client meetings in the last few days and my heart was telling me like, you're doing good work. You're doing good work. you're helping, you're making a difference. Even like, and I will take tiny steps. I'm not talking about like we're going to manage your anxiety and overnight, but I'm like, you're telling me about it. You told me about one thing that makes you anxious after not talking about your anxiety for I don't even know how long. Thank you. Like it's working. And there's something so like powerful about that, but like also paying attention and having kids talking to them about trusting your gut, trusting your intuition. If something feels off, text your mom and get out of there. If something feels if something feels okay, you know what I mean? Like knowing that your body will give you some signals.
Yeah.
And don't ignore them. Pay attention, notice, and then notice what's around you, and then make a choice.
The other thing that I think is really cool about intuition is I've also heard it defined as high level pattern recognition.
Ooh.
So it's like you're getting these signals and they're not necessarily coming to your brain, but you're taking them in through your eyes. You're feeling vibes, energy from somebody else. You're looking around like, like what made me think of that is when you said if you're feeling this, it's okay to call your mom and tell her to come get you. Like there's that feeling of not being safe, right? And I love the idea because people can disparage intuition. People can say, oh, it's just, instinct or whatever. Like it's a gut feeling. It's not important. It's maybe more important than what your brain, because our brains will fool us. They like, if you want something, if you can't be objective, then you're easily fooled by your own brain, and the intuition, the paying attention to like the feelings that you have, the emotions that come up, the like the things that don't seem quite right, even if you can't define them. Don't worry about defining them. Go with what it's telling you, because that's really where the magic is, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I keep reading about this. I keep hearing about this. It just keeps coming back to me, all this work on like really the extreme value in being able to recognize, name your emotion, and how much more you can do once you have been able to do that. Where then you can take that and then you can run with it. You know what I mean? You can understand it better. You can manage it better. There's so much more self-regulation that can happen when you at least just acknowledge it. So recognizing that gut feeling, recognize like I'm scared, I'm worried, I'm anxious, I'm mad, recognize it, acknowledge it, and then let's do something. I think it's fascinating.
And if we can do that for ourselves and we can be that person who gives our kids the space to do that, I mean, that's really where the magic happens, because kids like very young children and teenagers especially, and I'm finding now as a menopausal person, like it's happening again, where like when you're very small, you can take in and understand so much more than you can communicate. And then with teenagers, there's so much emotion. It's much easier to take in than it is to communicate. And now with me, the same thing happens where I'll just be like, I can't even like get my words out. And to know that, and to be able to say like, this is okay, take a deep breath, because there's a feeling here. What's the feeling? And if we can help our kids do that, it resolves, again, just like play, it resolves conflicts.
Yeah.
For one child to be able to say to another child, I'm sad, or I'm mad, or I'm frustrated, and then the other child to say that at least helps the other child know like, oh, maybe that's why they took this toy out of my hand, or why they shouted or whatever.
Right. It builds that perspective taking.
Yeah. And
And hopefully,
there's an empowerment to it, I think, knowing how you feel.
yeah, it is. There is something really powerful with it being able to know how you feel and know that you have some agency to do something. How cool is that? I love that. Oh my gosh. I wanted to check in with you. You have so many amazing things out in the world. Is there anything in particular that you wanted to share with my audience?
Oh, thank you for the opportunity. Yes. So I am right now I have a thing called the We Turned Out Okay Playbook. And it's a monthly subscription like newsletter that comes in the mail. I love writing it. The subscribers get so much out of it. When I went into the hospital in October with diverticulitis for the first time in 9 years. And when I came out of it, I was like, you know what you need to do? You need to do your own playbook, lady. You need to like walk your talk. So I started not putting on my mom hat and actually doing it, sitting in my living room chair, you know what I mean, and writing in it. And it's a journal and some other things. Anyway, I have decided that it will conclude. The last issue to come out will be December of 2021. And I'm calling it the We Turned Out Okay Playbook of Days. And it's going to be a year-long like exploration of what makes us feel good and like how do we keep going as parents and within ourselves. And so that's one thing that I'm very excited about that's coming up that I'm working on. And anybody listening, you can go to WeTurnedOutOKAY.com/playbook to see what the playbook's all about. Depending on when you listen, and if you want to, give it a try, you've got a couple of months left probably where you can do that. The other thing that I would love to invite people to is for years now, I've been writing an essay a week. And I do post them at WeTurnedOutOK.com. But an easier way to get them and to get the new thinking and the new thoughts is to sign up for my newsletter, which is WeTurnedOutOKAY.com/weekly. And when you do, I write these every week. And this week's, for example, is called What What Do You Wish You Knew When You Were 22? Because I have a friend who just graduated from college, and her family has invited friends to write in a book of hers. And I thought, I'm not just going to write for myself. I'm gonna invite newsletter subscribers to also write. And what advice do you have for someone who's 22 years old? So that's kind of what I'm doing. Those are two things.
So amazing. So I'll link to those in the show notes so everybody can go over and visit Karen and her great work. I mean, I remember last year was it last year? Oh my gracious. You started it during COVID, correct? So I actually think I did some when I was in a really rough spot in COVID with myself, not necessarily with my kids, but just like all of the drama and change and upset. And I was like, I'm going to use the playbook. And I just went through on vacation and was able to do it. And I was like, oh my gosh, this really, like, even just that, like, it helped my thinking shift. And that's exactly what I needed, especially on vacation, to then go back into the world to be like, okay, we can do this. We just have to look at things a little bit differently, but we got this.
And I'm remembering what you said now too. You said that it was a life raft.
Yes, it's what I needed. And it was funny because I was staying by a lake. So I just had this like image of the rafts and all the people. It was, yeah.
And I suppose the other thing to know is that I publish a podcast every couple weeks. We're at episode 367 just came out. So.
Oh my gracious. That's
Janine has been a guest on that. You've been on that show, I think 6 times.
Oh my gosh, that's outrageous.
So amazing. You're like the most winningest guest.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, I love We Turned Out Okay. I love your podcast. It's fantastic. And I love that, you talk to different people, you hear different perspectives, you focus on play a lot, which I think is phenomenal. I think it's phenomenal. You know how much I love play too. I wanted to talk with you about how you like to play. So how do you rest? How do you recharge? How do you play?
Oh, I love this question. I think probably nature is one of the biggest ways. Yeah. So if I can be outside, hearing birds. What I've been finding is if I have a podcast in my ears, oftentimes I need to, or music, and I'm on a walk, I need to shut it off because I can't pay attention to it. Even though I want to, like, I wish I could keep listening to the Adventure Zone or, something silly, which is usually what I listen to on a walk. But sometimes I just can't take it in. And what in those moments, I know that what I need is just the rest of hearing the birds and, seeing the wildlife, watching where the sun is in the sky, checking out the clouds. The moon is one of my favorite things. Like sometimes I can get rest and relaxation just by looking at the moon. I'll be like, there it is, Um, I love activity, so I love dancing. I love skiing and hiking and walking and using my body. I think the years that I couldn't have made me just so much more appreciative of like the miracle that is my body.
Yeah.
And so those are some ways I love to spend time laughing. So and I love to spend time with loved ones. So and if I can combine a thrill for me is to combine kind of like a swimming day with my kids and families that we know and love. And there's always a lot of laughing with that, right? Or skiing with my folks and my sons and my brother and his family, and sitting and talking with you is one of my favorite things. And sometimes we do that outside, right? Like if we're out at a cafe or something. So yeah, does that answer that question?
Yeah, it's lovely. I keep coming back to nature. There's such great research, but it's just so soothing just in general. It just seems like something that is what we're meant to do, is to be outside in nature. But I thank you so much for sharing, because I think it's just important for people to know, like, we all have different ways of sort of managing, of resting, of refilling our buckets, and we need to make sure that we are doing it.
Yes.
So yeah, I think it's really important that we are doing, especially now, especially when we are going through such an interesting sort of way of living, and with anxiety as we go back out into the world and try and figure out this new sort of phase in COVID. What can we do? So one more time, where can people find you?
They can find me at WeTurnedOutOKAY.com.
Excellent.
Or email me, Karen@WeTurnedOutOK.com. Can I just say one more quick thing?
Of course.
When we don't get the rest and relaxation, it's not good for us. But the other thing that has really pushed me into doing it sometimes is what am I role modeling for my kids? What my kids will grow up and see, they will understand, here's how you be an adult. You don't do your favorite things that you wish you could do, right?
Yeah.
I don't want that. I want them to see me succeeding at having a blast. And when I think about it, that was the role modeling that I had. My folks love life still to this day, and they always did. And even though it's hard sometimes, that was something that I really grew up with, is the idea of like, we are together and we're loving it and we're having a ball. So anyway.
Oh, I love that. And you know what? I think that can sometimes, we feel like it's not a necessary thing. Obviously, I think, and you think, play is necessary for everybody, including adults, but it becomes like just that good role modeling as well. What do we want our kids to do or see as they're growing up and do when they are grown-ups? I don't want them to feel like they have to work 24/7 and work on the weekends. I want them to play Stardew Valley with their kids, like I do with mine. That's what I want for them, to be able to know, like, it is good, it is fine, it is necessary to take a break.
Yeah. So, how do you want your kids to remember you, right?
Yes, exactly. How do you want your kids to remember you? So, Karen, thank you so much for being on the podcast. And everyone, as always, take a few minutes, have a little fun, and have an awesome day.